All right, it's a new week, and that means new predictions. This video is going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to put the top 25 rankings at the end of it. I'll just put those on the socials. But let's just go ahead and get right into my picks for the week. Starting out with Syracuse at UNLV. I believe that game is on Friday. UNLV has been the center of a lot of controversy after their quarterback that led them to beat two power conference teams decided to stop playing for them, and just because he didn't get his NIL money or something like that. The teams they've beaten are far from the top of the food chain, but still impressive for a team like this. There was concern for UNLV after losing their quarterback, but their most recent game against Fresno State has put a lot of that to rest. The new quarterback played very well for them, 13-16, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they put up a ton of points. It's a Fresno team that's not really that bad. So this game against Syracuse is definitely a huge deal for them as they fight for that G5 auto bid spot. There are still several contenders for that spot. I know I talk about this just about every week, but that's because it's constantly a changing race. Obviously, G5 school isn't going to really win the national championship or anything, but they are still fighting for a chance to try, and it's at least entertaining. So not my favorite system, but my opinions aside, like I said, it's entertaining to keep up with at the very least. We have seen Syracuse beat Georgia Tech, but also lose to Stanford. They are the perfect team, I think, for UNLV to test themselves against. This is probably their toughest game yet, but I think the matchup will favor them, especially since they are playing this game at home. Syracuse has to fly pretty much across the country for this game, and UNLV has also proven that they have a very effective defense. This will be the biggest test on their secondary because Syracuse passes the ball a lot. Offense for UNLV is very unique, so it's hard to tell how Syracuse is going to handle that defensively. But if UNLV's new quarterback continues to see success, I see a big win for them here, staying in the playoff race, and that's what I'm predicting to happen. Give me UNLV. Next, I have Missouri at Texas A&M. Both of these teams had a very narrow victories against their quality opponents, and in some cases, their non-quality opponents. So it's a pretty difficult one to pick. When you look at Missouri, they've had to fight to come back and beat Vanderbilt. In overtime, they had to fight to come back and beat Boston College. And when you look at A&M, they had to fight to beat Bowling Green and Arkansas. I think so far Texas A&M has looked more impressive, but I think that Missouri has the higher potential so far. Missouri does have the bye week on their side, and A&M does have home field advantage. One of the big factors here is whether we're going to see Connor Wigman play in this game and whether that helps or hurts Texas A&M. Marcel Reed has given the offense another weapon on the ground, but he isn't proved to be the best passer. Connor Wigman, on the other hand, is a better passer for sure, but he does not have the same capabilities on the ground. Which skill set gives them the better chance to win here? I think Missouri will come out with a win here either way. And that's because of their defense. While their offense has not been nearly as explosive as it was last year, the defense has been one of the best in the country. A&M has not faced a defense like this. Missouri's defense has allowed the 5th least completions in the country. So if Marcel Reed is the starter, I doubt he's going to be very successful through the air, especially since he's already not great through the air. They also have the 3rd highest sack rate, and they hold opponents at 3.3 yards per carry on average on the ground. We've seen this defense against mobile quarterbacks, and they have had decent success. So suffice it to say, I expect this to be a fight for points for A&M. On the other hand, Brady Cook has not looked quite like he did last year, but we know he's still very capable. Texas A&M has been pretty successful on defense. They were able to shut down Arkansas's dominant run game, but the secondary has had some issues. I think that this is a game where Brady Cook gets his mojo back. I think he finds chemistry with Luther Burden, and I think they secure a win here at Kyle Field. Next, I have SMU at Louisville, and SMU was a bit rocky at the start of the season. They did have a quarterback battle, which I think cost them the game against BYU. But since then, the offense has been dynamite. They have dominant wins against TCU and Florida State, and that has put them in a pretty good spot for this game. And I know FSU has been really bad this year, but one of the part of that team that has been really solid has been their defense, and SMU managed to score 42 on them in what was the largest margin of defeat that the Noles had all season. It's worth pointing out, though, that both of their dominant wins have been significantly aided by the turnover game and the margins there in those games. They were actually outgained in both of those games, and those turnovers really changed the game. Defense has been inconsistent for them, and they're going to need to be good here to come with a win because they're facing their biggest test all season, at least up to this point. Louisville may be coming off of a loss to Notre Dame, but they are favored in this one for a very good reason. Tyler Show can sling the ball very effectively, and I think Louisville has the defense that will be able to slow down SMU enough in this game. It's another home game for Louisville, and I think that they will perform well with the home fans desperate for a bounce-back game from last week's loss. I think Louisville wins this game. Next, I have Ole Miss at South Carolina, and Ole Miss suffered a devastating upset last week against Kentucky, and now they have to go on the road and face the team that blew out Kentucky, the team that they lost to 31-6. South Carolina has looked sneaky good this year. They took down Kentucky in dominating fashion, like I mentioned, and they've had a game ripped from them against LSU, and for all intents and purposes, I think they're pretty much undefeated. I know that they did lose to LSU, but I don't really see that as them losing, more so as the game being taken from them. But when I look at this game, it's hard for me to shake the talent edge that Ole Miss has. Sure, they did not perform at peak ability last week, but I trust that they're going to get it done this week. Offense is just too good, in my opinion, to be contained again. And we don't have much film on Ole Miss because they played a lot of cupcakes. And when they haven't played cupcakes, they got dominated on the line of scrimmage, and their run game got stuffed, and they were held to 17 points. But looking at this game, there are situational factors that I think could give South Carolina an additional edge. Obviously, home field advantage, South Carolina coming off of a bye, etc. And it shouldn't be overlooked that South Carolina likely has the best pass rush Ole Miss has faced. Ole Miss's offensive line will definitely be tested, and Jackson Dart will also be tested. But when you look outside of that, the matchups are just glaringly in favor of the Rebels in this one. South Carolina is going to have to get something done on the ground to win. Only problem is that Ole Miss has the best run defense in the country. If South Carolina has to rely on their pass game, there's going to be a ton of sacks. South Carolina's defense is one of the worst in the country in giving up sacks, and Ole Miss is the second best in the country at causing them. Again, I know I've said it multiple times, but you have to take into account who Ole Miss has played, because while Ole Miss may be the best run defense in the country by the numbers and the second best at getting sacks, we have no clue how good they actually are at those things because they have not played hardly anyone that can test them in those areas. And the one team that did have the capability to do that beat them. So the glaring issues here may not be as glaring as they sound. They may be misleading, in fact, but they could not be at the same time. We just don't know yet, but we definitely will in this game. Either way, I think Ole Miss will get to the quarterback pretty effectively. That South Carolina offensive line just isn't good enough to stop them, even if Ole Miss is nowhere close to the second best team at causing sacks. And while we are talking about Ole Miss's defense, I think that they do have vulnerabilities in the secondary if South Carolina can give their quarterback enough time to make plays, and that's a huge if. A huge part of that's also the quarterback himself. Last time we saw LaNorris Sellers, he got hurt. Will he be back in this game? Will he be 100%? Unsure. And that's not the only injury that they're dealing with. Ole Miss cannot afford a loss here. They are one of the favorites in the SEC. Now, that doesn't mean that South Carolina is going to care about that. Obviously, they're going to give this game their all, but I think Ole Miss will take this one. Next, I have Rutgers at Nebraska. And I told you guys last week that I'm in the process of recalibrating my expectations for this Nebraska team, and this game will be a huge part of where I land on my feel for them. Rutgers looks better than many may have expected, and I think Nebraska looks a little worse than I expected. Well, at least. Still, much better than last season, but not quite as good as I originally expected. I know they're probably better than a lot of people gave them credit for originally, but I was pretty high on them to start the year. They're going to have to be at the top of their game to beat Rutgers, who has been able to come out on top against Washington and Virginia Tech already. Either way, this is a home game for the Huskers, and I imagine that environment will bring the heat. Rutgers has a salty defense and a very potent running game, spearheaded by Kyle Monangai. And I think their defense could provide really troublesome for Dylan Raiola. We've seen Nebraska struggle in games like, against Illinois, who had a similar profile. Obviously, Nebraska has been a really strong defense as well. I expect this to be a pretty low-scoring affair, but I think Nebraska has the advantage and will win the game. there is a world where Rutgers can wear down Nebraska's defense with their run game, but there's also a more likely scenario, I think, where Nebraska plugs up the run and forces Rutgers to pass, and that's very favorable for Nebraska. Rutgers can do the same to Nebraska defensively, though. Nebraska does have more options offensively to succeed if that does happen, though. And this game will really just be up to Dylan Raiola. If he has a good game, the Huskers will win. If not, Rutgers could definitely steal this game, especially if Rutgers is able to force turnovers, which they are normally really, really good at. Next is Alabama at Vanderbilt, and I could paint this picture of a trap game for Alabama where they fall to Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt's off of a bye. Alabama has had an emotional win against Georgia last week. It's a home game for the Commodores, and Vanderbilt looks much improved than they were last year, but Alabama's going to win this game. No question about it. The level of athlete here is far superior for Alabama. They are not the kind of team that's going to fall into this trap. They will go into Nashville and take care of business. Simple as that. Trust me, I hope so badly that I'm wrong, but I know that I won't be. Alabama's going to win this game, and it's not going to be pretty. Vanderbilt may hang around in the first half, maybe, but one way or another, Alabama's going to have this game put away before the fourth quarter, I believe. There are weaknesses in Alabama's secondary. I do believe that, but Vanderbilt I don't think is going to be able to effectively exploit that, and Alabama's offense is going to be able to do whatever they want to in Nashville. Next, I have Tennessee at Arkansas, and we know that Tennessee is the better team here. Arkansas is much better than we expected, but I don't think that they are going to be good enough to beat this Tennessee team. Tennessee just has a very, very complete team, and it's hard to point out a true weakness at this point. Nico just gets better and better every week, and to add insult to injury, Tennessee is off of a bye. We know that Arkansas can run the ball, and we haven't really seen Tennessee play a team that is this good at running the ball, but what I've seen from their defense, I'm not too worried. Even if Arkansas can be successful on the ground, I don't think they're going to be able to be consistent enough. Arkansas is prone to making mistakes and turning the ball over, and you just cannot have those kind of mistakes when playing this kind of Tennessee team. Defensively, Arkansas has been very solid at taking the ball away and stopping the run. So if they can flip the script with a turnover game and play favorable field position, then they could be in this game, but that just I don't think is going to happen. Tennessee has an explosive offense and a very salty defense. Tennessee can hurt you in a number of ways, and I don't think Arkansas is going to be able to keep up even at their best. And next I have Michigan at Washington. This is a rematch of the national championship, and I'm expecting the same team to win it here. Obviously, both teams lost a ton, but I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Michigan is very beatable if you have the right profile of team, and I actually do think that Washington does have the right profile of team to do it. They have the physicality needed to win this game. They're playing it at home. We know Michigan's profile is going to be run the ball, and run it again. Virtually no threat of the pass game here. So the path to the victory for Washington is pretty simple. Not easy, but simple. Just stop the run. Washington has definitely shown vulnerabilities against the run, and that's really good for Michigan. But they're going to send everything that they have to stop it here. Michigan also has a very mobile quarterback and also very capable running backs that I think are going to be able to be enough to get the win here. On the other side of the ball, though, Michigan is one of the best defenses in the country, so moving the chains is going to be very difficult. Will Rogers has been very, very accurate, been a very great quarterback for them. He can definitely get it done through the air. The problem is that Washington has trouble finishing drives. They don't have a great kicker. They can't score in the red zone, and that's just not good news when you're playing a team like this on defense. I'm not very confident in this game, though. Mistakes can drastically change the outcome here. The margins are so very thin. I think Michigan is the better team, though, and this is their first road game. So this could easily go the other way. Washington Stadium is going to have a crazy environment, but Washington is favored for a reason. I just think that Michigan is going to find a way to pull it out. And lastly, I have UCF at TCU. This past weekend made me question this game a whole lot more, a lot harder to predict. I thought UCF was one of the most underrated teams in the country, but then they got blown up by Colorado. They have to put that in the rearview mirror, though, because I am picking them to win this game anyways. They have to go into the swamp here, and they have to be ready. Florida has not been great this year, and that environment has proven very fragile. I think there is a glaring matchup nightmare in this game, and that's Florida's run defense against UCF's rushing game. And if you can run the ball game, that opens up everything else. It does worry me that UCF's offense struggled against Colorado's defense, but I think that they will still shine here. They have a very mobile quarterback with a myriad of high-level running backs. They should have the guys in the passing game to be successful too. They aren't the best in that department, but they are good enough for Florida to not be able to sell out against the run. On the other side, UCF is very weak in the secondary. Unfortunately for Florida, they're not working with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter to go against, but Mertz is definitely still effective, especially in the short and intermediate pass game. Problem is the Knights should find success against the run, and Mertz does not have the best deep ball. I don't know if the short passes are going to be enough to keep up with UCF in this game. Huge game for both teams, though. I think UCF takes this one close, though. And there are obviously a lot more predictions that I have. Those will be on the social, so check them out there on A_Rock321 on X and Threads. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you guys had a great day or night whenever you're watching this. Please like, comment, subscribe. So, yeah, peace.